you, Rabbi Black. The House will come to order. This morning, the Pledge of Allegiance is by Emily Tate, and she is from Legend High School in Parker, Colorado, and she is a guest of Representative Ransom.
Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Representatives Arndt, Baker J. Jay Becker.
Excused.
Becker K. Beckman. Benavides. Bridges. Buck. Buckner. Carver. Catlin. Coleman. Covarrubias. Danielson. Escar.
Excused.
Everett. Exum. Foot. Garnett. Garnett.
Excused.
Janal. Gray. Representative Escar is present. Gray. Hamner. Hanson. Herod. Hooten. Humphrey. Jackson. Kennedy. Kraft Tharp. Landgraf. Landgraf. Representative Landgraf is present. Lawrence. Lee. Leonard. Lewis. Liston. Lontine. Lundeen. McKean. McLaughlin. Belton. Michelson today. Neville. Pabon. Pedersen. Rankin. Ransom. Ryer. Roberts. Rosenthal. Sane. Salazar. Sandridge. Sias. Singer. Thurlow. Valdez. Van Winkle. Van Winkle. Weissman. Willett. Williams. Wilson. Winkler. Winter. Winter.
Excuse.
Wist. Young. Madam Speaker.
I am here.
Becker J, Garnett, and Winter. I don't see any of them. Representative Garnett is present. Representative Jay Becker is present. Representative Winter is present.
With 65 present and 0 excused, we do have a quorum. Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or Madam Speaker. Hang on a minute. Colleagues, could I have your attention for a moment?
Members, can we please have your attention? Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you too.
Colleagues, this morning I woke up all riled up. I was, I didn't feel like myself. We talked about who I'm with yesterday. But I just felt like the world didn't measure up to what I was expecting this morning when I got up. And I looked around, my wife didn't measure up, my kids didn't measure up. All those things did not measure up. So I thought about a guy that raised me, and he said to me, Mark, when the world doesn't measure up to your expectations, maybe you ought to take a minute and take a look at your yardstick, because it's probably the guy that's holding the yardstick that's not measuring up. That's what happened with me this morning. So remember, if the world's not measuring up to your expectations, we should probably take a look at the person who's holding the yardstick. And with that, I'd like to move that the reading of the Journal of Wednesday, April 25, 2018, be dispensed with and approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Representative Catlin, for the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying no. No. Oh, that motion passes. Announcements and introductions. Representative Landgraf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm looking for Representative Singer, and I don't see him. So Members, I would like to introduce to you some students who are sitting in the back. There are more than 5,600 children and youth in out-of-home placement. Today, foster youth from around the state are on the floor and in the gallery. They have come to Denver to learn about leadership, who are leaders, and what does leadership look like. Foster youth are often forgotten, but agencies like Shiloh House are engaging them in programs like Beyond the Walls, this to enrich their life experience. Hello. Please take the opportunity this morning to introduce yourself to them. And I would like to ask them to stand, and then Representative Singer will have some words. These students come from Adams and Jefferson County, Denver, and when you get an opportunity, you can say hi.
Representative Singer, good morning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this is the only ask that I make of you. We're not supposed to talk about our bills in the well, so I won't. But what I will say is that we have passed numerous pieces of legislation or are currently working on pieces of legislation that deal directly with our youth. Please, if you're working on one of those bills, please come talk to our youth. They know what's going on, and they're not afraid to use all the four-letter words to explain it.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. Further announcements or introductions? Representative Melton and Representative Everett. Good morning.
Morning, Madam Speaker. So there's only 2 bow tie Fridays left, merely 2. So we're expecting 100% participation.
100.
For those of you that don't have a bow tie bolo baby scarf and 70s turtleneck,
These turtlenecks.
I'm sure, at least on the 70s turtleneck, Representative Willett can help you out. I can help you out with bow ties. It's pretty clear, since normally the ingot is hanging to his navel area. I bet you Representative Salazar can help you with a bolo. And what?
It's an amendment. We have an amendment.
We have an amendment?
We have an amendment.
Okay, we have an amendment. Madam Speaker.
Oh, goodness. An amendment? Representative Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to amend bow tie and bolo Friday to bow tie, bolo, and boot Friday. So if you've got your cowboy boots, Friday is the day to wear them. I personally wear them every day, but I know some of you keep them hiding in the closet. They should be out here on the floor along with your bow ties and your bolos. Is this a friendly amendment?
It's
Driving a fiscal.
yeah, that might be driving a fiscal note.
We'll send it back to the analyst.
Why don't we, we'd like special cutouts, so how about just for vertically challenged people, you can wear your boots.
I boots as well. I think we can have some boots within existing resources. So it's appropriate amendment. With that, any further announcements or introductions this morning? BBB this Friday, last 2 Fridays. Representative Rosenthal. Oh, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Madam Speaker, even though I wasn't here before, skinny and sandwich. But, okay, so members, just a reminder, tomorrow is Aerospace Day. Well, it's not Aerospace Day, but it's Aerospace and Defense Caucus lunch. And so remember, you're all welcome 11:45 to about 1:30 across the street, 6th floor conference room. We'll be talking about military bases. And of course, there's always lunch provided. Try to let us know if you're coming. Again, Aerospace Caucus lunch tomorrow. And you're all welcome. Aim high.
Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's a pleasure to serve with you.
It's a pleasure to serve with you as well, Representative Winkler.
I know it's not third reading, but I am making an announcement in the well. So I thought I'd make my first announcement in the well. And ladies and gentlemen, we have in our presence today in the chambers the first woman to be a NASCAR promoter, an owner of a racetrack, motorsports in Michigan, the first female president of the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. And I'm telling you all of these things because I'm hoping not to get fined for introducing my mother. Can we give a hearty Colorado House of Representatives welcome to my mother? A very dignified person. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, and welcome to the General Assembly. There'll be no fine. Further announcements or introductions? Representative Escar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Winkler, before I do my introduction, I just want to tell you I come from a racing family myself, and I, in fact, used to race cars too. So I'm excited to meet your mother in a moment. I have some guests on the floor. I have 2 students from Pueblo who are joining us. If they would just stand up, please, and welcome them to the chamber today, guys. Thank you.
Welcome to the legislature. Representative Sandridge. Good morning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today is a great day because today is House District 14 Day at the Capitol. So I would like everyone to welcome my constituents over here. Let's clap. Thank you. And I'd like to say, this is your house. So I appreciate you being here, and hopefully you learn a lot and have a good day. Thank you.
That'll be $1. Representative Lawrence. Welcome to the Capitol, though. Good morning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I also have a group on the side of the chamber today. We have the DTC Young Professionals are visiting the Capitol today. If you'd like to stand up. These are young professionals from the Denver Tech Center area who wanted to learn a little bit more about what goes on in the House and just see if we are truly as unruly as we appear to be. So I want to thank them for coming down. I would encourage all of you to engage them. They have some great questions about what we do down here. And, make it sound like we do good stuff. So thank you for being here.
Madam Josephine Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I'm about 98% sure we will be coming back to the floor today at 4:30, so there will be a call of the House at that time. Committees, please try to get all your work done by then. Thank you.
Further announcements or introductions? Going once, going twice. Seeing no further announcements or introductions, that takes us to third reading of bills, final passage. Members, we're starting third reading. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1368.
House Bill 1368, Representatives Danielson and Melton, all Senators Merrifield and Moreno, concerning the repeal of the prohibitions on local governments enacting minimum wage laws.
Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1368 on third reading and final passage.
All right, seeing no discussion, Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote on House Bill 1368. Please close the machine. With 36 yes votes, 29 no votes, House Bill 1368 is passed. Co-sponsors. Oh, there's typically not applause, but thank you for joining us today. With that, co-sponsors. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. All right, Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1276.
House Bill 1276 by Representative Salazar, Senator Fields, concerning teaching civil government in public schools in connection with establishing the History, Culture, and Civil Government Education Commission to make recommendations to include the history, culture, and contributions of American Indians, Hispanic Americans, African Americans, and Asian Americans in the teaching and content standards for history and civics and making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1276 on third reading and final passage.
Motion before us is passage of House Bill 1276 on third reading and final passage. Representative Salazar.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I ask for permission to move a third reading amendment.
All right, would you like to tell us why?
Sorry, I was reveling in the hisses. Members, the amendment that I'm looking to move is to bring the bill back to its original intent. So I ask for permission for this third reading amendment.
Representative Willett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just for a little bit of background and for our audience, what Representative Salazar is referring to is his bill spoke to increasing teaching in schools of history of unique peoples, black, yellow, brown. I ran an amendment to add to that they also have to be taught in high school the same civics test that immigrants take to become citizens of America and have to learn it and pass it. That amendment got on. In fact, 43 votes in favor of that, including the sponsor and the speaker. Now, this amendment would take that amendment back off, this third reading amendment. That amendment, I am clear, is not procedurally appropriate under 33B.5. It's a substantial amendment, substantive, substantial. You've heard that before. We don't allow those on House bills. However, I am told that the procedure allows this matter to be sent back to seconds. I was approached saying, look, it reminds me of something. Where's Representative Humphrey and I heard Representative Pabon use the term that I've been using so much this year. Yes, indeed, that would be a Hobson's choice. You can have vanilla ice cream or you can have vanilla ice cream. Which way would you like your vanilla ice cream? I do appreciate the fact that I was approached to say these are the options. However, it's really not an option. Why would we go back to seconds at the end of the session, members, when we're so busy, 414 bills, no time? We had a full and fair debate on seconds. It was quite long. So it makes no sense to go back to seconds. If it went back to seconds, I have no doubt that the amendment would be stripped off, and that would be procedurally kind of appropriate, but not appropriate, because you shouldn't send something back to seconds when it's on thirds unless something has happened, such as a Supreme Court opinion came down, or we found out the bill had a major drafting error. Why would we ever send anything back to seconds when there hasn't been any change in the world to require it go back? So I'm up here saying it's inappropriate to send it back to seconds as a matter of procedure, and it's clearly inappropriate to allow a third reading amendment. So right now we're talking about the procedure of whether a third reading amendment will be allowed. If it is allowed, then I guess we'll get to vote on that amendment. So members, again, this is a substantial amendment stripping off a huge amendment we put on with overwhelming bipartisan support. So I think it's out of order to do this amendment at this time, and it's also out of order to send it back to second. So I urge a no vote on this request.
So the discussion right now is permission to offer a third reading amendment. So let's just make sure the discussion is related to that. Representative Salazar.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And as Office of Legislative Legal Services has indicated, permission must be granted by the body. What I've moved is in order. It is up to the body to grant me permission to move the third reading amendment, and that's where we're at. So that's what I'm asking for, members, is permission on third reading amendment, or to offer a third reading amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 34 yes votes, 31 no votes, the body grants permission to offer a third reading amendment. Representative Salazar.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I move L004 to House Bill 1276.
Properly moved, and it is displayed. Representative Salazar.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. You know, a couple of nights ago, we were debating this bill, House Bill 1276, and the offer was made to put an amendment on the bill that would require high school students to be able to pass the citizenship and naturalization test before they were allowed to graduate from high school. Now, I don't sit on education, I sit on judiciary, and so I don't know much about this policy, this amendment, and it sounded pretty good, and particularly it sounded good since there was an offer of bipartisanship on the bill. So we agreed, and the amendment was led on. But here's the thing. After that amendment was led on, I started getting text messages and email messages from stakeholders, from teachers, all across the state, as well as other people who are far more expert in education than what I am, particularly those on the issue of local control. And they said, what did you just do? And I was like, I don't know. I let this amendment on because this bill would be a bipartisan bill with this amendment on. And they said, and I certainly am not impugning anybody's motive, but they said, do you know the nefariousness of that amendment? That this is something that has been tried across the United States by a conservative right-wing organization? And I said, actually, I didn't know anything about that. And then they sent me information about it. And I started doing research on it because I'm not so certain that members of this body know about what this amendment does. Number one, is it destroys local control and it uses up local resources to have to cause teachers to teach to a citizenship and naturalization test, using all sorts of district resources to do that. Number two, it's going to affect our students, that now they're having been taken away from their other studies to now have to teach to a test. Number three, that the amendment is actually the antithesis of the bill. And let's recall that this bill is about developing a multicultural curriculum in the state of Colorado by experts who would then recommend that curriculum to our school districts. And what this test does is it does the antithesis of that, where it wipes out multiculturalism because our citizenship and naturalization test has nothing to do with that. And as I sat there looking at it, I thought to myself, I'm a little shocked. Not shocked that it was offered, but I was a little shocked that such an amendment would run absolutely contrary to the intent of this bill. After receiving all that information and the objections of teachers and students and others across the state of Colorado, I said to myself, you know, this is not the original intent of the bill. And I don't think that the amendment sponsor meant anything bad by offering the amendment. but that's the effect. It would have a disastrous effect on students of color as well as white students who would learn so much with the original intent of this bill. And that's why, members, I am asking you to please vote to vote for L004, which strips that amendment. Now, let's recall that during the debate, that the sponsor of the amendment said, "I see merit to your bill." Those are the words, "I see merit to your bill," or "this bill has merit." And it does, because the studies show that when you teach in a multicultural fashion, that student attendance increases dramatically as well as their GPA. There's no negative aspect of this bill. It's all supported by data and evidence. But not only that, but they also saw that students treated each other better, that they engaged with each other in a more respectful fashion because now they understood each other's plights and obstacles and barriers that they've had to overcome. So I hope that you still see that there is merit in this bill before you offered the amendment, and that you support this bill. So I ask for a yes vote on L004.
Representative Everett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to address a few issues that Representative from Thornton brought up. First, since I unfairly get blamed for every right-wing conspiracy, I'm going to ask all my friends on the right, did you guys get pushed to push this amendment from some right-wing group? No, I didn't think so. I didn't think so at all. But what this really is about is we're doing a substantive amendment on third reading. This is testing, ladies and gentlemen. We've run bills on testing from both sides of the aisle. This is hugely substantive and goes to the integrity of our institution of passing a substantive amendment and setting a dangerous precedent on third reading. I urge a no vote on this amendment.
Representative Pedersen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, it's rare in the education world that every single representative of every interest for education is united on an issue, and they are all united against this. So while I understand the intent of this amendment, and we've discussed this in possibilities in other bills, that should be debated separately. This actually goes against the intent of this bill, and this is not where we should be having this discussion. Every single, the amendment. That's what I'm talking about. So vote no on this amendment. Sorry. Yes, sorry. Order. I'm exhausted.
Order.
All right, we're all tired. And we were tired yesterday when we let this get on. So vote yes on this amendment to take it out. This is not what we should have actually put in this bill. It goes against the intent. Every education stakeholder is watching. They are united against what was added on yesterday. So please vote yes.
Further discussion. Representative Rosenthal is who I saw next.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, members, this is probably the third time I'm talking about this. I try not to talk too much about bills at the well, but as an educator myself, I have to address this because this is really goes to the core of how we talk about education in the state and how we talk about education nationally. And it's so critical because if you look at so, by the way, and I strongly support this amendment, and I do not support the amendment that was put on yesterday. So, if you look at some of the questions in the, sorry, if I could have quiet, Madam Speaker.
Members, we are debating.
So, if you look at some of the
Rosenthal.
questions that are actually in the citizenship test, there are things like, who is the President of the United States? Now, I'd rather have a different person, but of course we all know the answer to that. What is the name of the Vice President? What political party does the President have? What were the original 13 states? Name 3 of them. Things like that. What year did we declare independence against the British? All those are very basic questions. And if you look at teaching today, teachers are required pretty much to use what they call Costa's levels of questioning. Okay, so for those teachers out there, how many teachers do we got? Okay, we got a teacher over here, we got Hamner. Thank you. How many teachers do we have? There we go. All right, so some of you know Costa's levels of questioning. Level 1 is called the basement. The basement deals with the very first level, deals with learn specific facts, ideas, and vocabulary. Now, members, what I just told you about some of the questions on the test, that sounds like basement, doesn't it? We're not dealing with like level 3 questions, which is really where this bill relates to, okay, which is synthesizing and estimating, generating, hypothesizing, inventing, modifying, plan, predicting, concluding based on your knowledge, justifying, judging. All those things are higher level types of thought processes when you actually integrate all that information. And that's what we should be teaching in our schools as a higher level. Not just like, oh yeah, who wrote the Constitution, which is important information, but now why did they write it? Why did they have 3 branches of government? What were the negotiations that took place? Why did they have the compromises? What were the compromises? Why did they do 3/5 of a person, which is horrifying? Why did they modify that under the 13th Amendment? What are the challenges we still face today, stemming from our revolution and from slavery? Now, those are more important than just who is the President of the United States. And so I ask the members, please remove this amendment that we had from yesterday. Please adopt this amendment that we have now, because I think it really is critical that we respect the teaching profession and not disrespect it with the type of amendment that I believe was put on yesterday. I'm not casting aspersions on the member who put it on, but just to say that I really don't think that's a very helpful amendment that was put on yesterday. Thank you very much.
Members, please be careful not to impugn motives. Representative Said.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I appreciate this conversation because one of the questions I asked, and Representative Rosenthal went through a couple of those, but one of the questions I asked, what is competent history? And one of the questions that's in this particular test is, who is the first president of the United States? And so the title of the bill, I'll point back to that, is Teaching Competent History in Public Schools. We all had an agreement that that was competent history. So as a teacher myself, I've taught a variety of classes to grade school children. I know there's actually a tremendous amount that actually can be done in one day. Can you imagine what could be done in one day with this test instead of folks outside this Capitol lobbying the government with taxpayer dollars? Urge a no vote on this.
Further discussion. Representative Lundin. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. So members, let's go back to the discussion the other night. Teaching competent history in public schools. The bill was before us that said, in order to be competent, you ought to include these other things. Fair debate, reasonable set of questions to have. And as part of that process rolled on, the idea was floated, you know what? Let's make sure that we are as competent graduating the students from our high schools as are the people who are self-selecting in to become citizens of the country. And the idea of allowing for this citizenship test, this immigration test, to be part of that competent history was floated, broadly embraced. I will remind you it was broadly embraced. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges inherent in doing, in actually executing on that, making it happen in the public schools today. The reality is this particular test is available in a couple of different formats online, free, at no cost. So you can take the test to determine whether or not you are competent in the basic understanding of the civics of America, free, online, no burden, anytime, day or night. So then the question becomes, if the test's easily available, doesn't cost districts, schools, teachers any financial burden, the question is, well, how burdensome is it to make sure that the students can do the studies, to do the work, to learn and acquire, appropriate the knowledge to pass the test. I would argue that's inherent in our charge for a thorough and uniform school system in the state of Colorado already. So we're not raising the bar. We're simply saying, hey, there's a free way to assess, a simple way to assess with little or no intrusion, whether or not we're getting over that bar. So I would argue the objections that are being tossed up to this broadly agreed upon construct by this body the other night are fatuous. They're false objections. We are already responsible to get to the level of instruction, and we've got a free and easy, simple way to administer the test. And the questions are the sorts of questions that everybody in this body would, I'm sure, want our students to be able to access and answer. And I won't, there's 100 questions, and they're simple things, but they're fundamental things to who we are. What is the supreme law of the land? The Constitution. What is an amendment to the Constitution? Or what are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution called? The Bill of Rights. These are things that we all believe in, that we all know that we need to have access to have appropriated to be full citizens of the country. And we as a society have chosen the people who choose to self-select in, who don't have the fortune that I had to be born here, but who choose to come here and become a citizen. It's the test that they are sitting for and passing in order to become citizens. I urge your opposition of this amendment and your support of the construct and the broadly held agreement by this body the other evening that in fact would allow this description of competent history to be part of what we see as the law of Colorado. Thank you.
And members, just a reminder that the maker of the motion can speak up to 10 minutes. Otherwise, you can speak for a total of 10 minutes, but only 2 times. So with that, Representative Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I guess the assumption is that what is being taught in schools today doesn't live up to the standards of when did we declare independence from Great Britain? All that is being taught already. Let's not kid ourselves. There's no discussion point about that. That's a fair point. All that's being taught. There are other things that are being taught that you see on the naturalization and citizenship test. Those are all being taught. We're not using up any additional school resources to teach those things. So let's not act like this amendment somehow is a panacea of knowledge that students already don't get. No, that's just not true. The original intent of this bill is to teach things that aren't being taught about the contributions and the turmoil, the barriers, and the histories of certain ethnic groups, Latinos, African Americans, Native Americans, and for the first time ever, Asian Americans. We're in 2018, and this bill incorporates Asian Americans into our history curriculum. Everything else you just said is being taught. Let's not fool ourselves. It's those things that aren't being taught. That's why this bill is being brought. Because outside of the citizenship and naturalization test, the contributions of those groups are not incorporated in that test. The contributions of those groups and the histories of those groups are not incorporated into our current curriculum. That's why we're bringing the bill. So this amendment, as I said, is the antithesis of this bill. An antithesis to the bill with this presumption that is being given up here today that, oh, we're not learning about when the United States declared independence from Great Britain. We know better than that. So that's why I'm asking for L004 and that you vote yes on L004.
Representative Gray.
Members, I have significant issues with this amendment. I spoke about them at great length on Tuesday night. You should feel free to take a look at the video. You can hear about them. But in the interest of going home at some point today, I'm not going to say them again today. I'm going to say that we should go ahead and move forward at some point. Thank you.
Further discussion? Representative Lundin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the sponsor of this amendment, which I urge you to reject, has just acknowledged or agreed with me on my first point, and that is this is not burdensome to our school system to in fact teach this level of information. We're doing it. We're in agreement on that. And it's not expensive for us to actually test. The question then is, what are we dealing with in terms of competency?
Members, I'm just going to ask one more time. We are on third reading. Please be quiet and sit in your seats.
Yeah, I feel like you're not listening to me.
I'm listening, Representative Dean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and that's probably the most important voice in this chamber. I appreciate that. So the test that, in fact, we would require, should you reject this amendment, asks questions that are highly relevant to exactly what the bill, as originally offered, seeks to do. It seeks to deal with some of these questions around questions like, who lived in America before the Europeans arrived? American Indians, Native Americans. Questions like, what group of people were taken to America and sold as slaves? Africans, people from Africa. The reality is, this very test that we can access at no additional cost, and if we stand together as we stood together the other night in a broad bipartisan way, gets at these very questions of competence history. I urge your rejection of this amendment.
All right, Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There is nothing more worrying to me than the studies done from every political perspective on the lack of knowledge that our young people have after they graduate from high school, their utter lack of knowledge and understanding of our history, Constitution, basic historical facts. Representative Rosenthal, you quite rightly said that there are different tiers of learning. And tier 1 is the most basic facts. And yet every study by academics, whether it's liberal, conservative, regardless of political perspective, what the studies are showing is that for whatever reason, and we don't need to go there this morning, our young people do not have a full understanding, and sometimes little or no understanding, of basic historical facts or the U.S. Constitution. Not tier 1, not tier 2, not tier 3. So I supported this amendment because I believed it was an accessible way for our high schools and teachers to utilize this already available test, which is highly regarded, to prepare our young people to be citizens. There is no more important status than that. We are the sovereign people of America, and when we exercise our right as citizens, we do that by necessity in our self-government with understanding of our history and our rights and where we want to go forward. So I would urge a no vote. Let's leave the amendment on. This is absolutely essential that we address this lack of knowledge and support our high schools and our fine social studies teachers in preparing American citizens for their job, their duty as the sovereign people.
Further discussion. Representative Beskar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, my name is on this bill as a co-sponsor with the original intent. I truly believe in the original intent, as for many times we've spoken at this well on different memorials, we know that not all the history has ever been taught. And we need to dig in and really start learning all of the history that isn't being taught in schools right now. Government and civics is taught in high schools now, and I agree with Representative Carver that we need more of that. But to put another standardized test into Colorado law with the expectation that if you don't pass this test, you don't graduate high school? I was a no on the amendment on Tuesday night. Or was it yesterday? Tuesday night. People keep saying yesterday. Tuesday night. I was a no on that amendment. I'm a yes on today's amendment because I'm not here to tell our teachers they have another test they have to teach to, and to tell our students that if you don't pass that test, you don't graduate high school. Vote yes on today's amendment. Put the bill back to its original intent, which was to expand the knowledge of history in our schools.
Further discussion? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I urge a no vote on this amendment. We did have broad support to put this amendment on this bill during seconds, and that's certainly something that we should respect. And I would also echo the comments about the rules. We do need to abide by these rules. They should mean something. And when we have a substantive change on thirds, that's a very dangerous precedent that we shouldn't be setting. But with respect to the immigration tests that I think we should be having administered here, I just want to point out a few things. And I did a quick search on the internet about whether or not Americans could actually pass this test, and I found some troubling findings here. In 2012, there was a study that showed that about a third of Americans could not pass this test. I went ahead and jumped around and I found a study that was done in 2017 that said most Americans could not pass this test. Now, the proponents of this amendment are stating that we don't need to be having this as a part of the bill. We don't need to be having any sort of discussion about making sure that we, in fact, teach these principles and this history to our students because it's already being done and they're already adequately learning these things. That is not the case. We have students that are going on to become adults and vote in our election processes, and they don't even have a firm foundation of American history and what it means to be an American. This is an appropriate thing that we did on seconds, and I would simply urge that we keep it in there because, quite frankly, there's not enough competent history that's being taught. So, members, please vote no on this amendment.
Representative Beck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I ask also for a no on this. I mean, we've all, I don't know, maybe not, I can't speak for everybody, but you know what? I do think state government needs to get out of school education. It is between the teacher, the parent, the principals, the school board, but state government needs to get out. But Representative Salazar, you're bringing this bill teaching competent history in public schools. You're getting into their, you're getting into their agenda. So then I'm asking you, what do you have to lose than to teach the naturalization test that has nothing, no cost to the teacher? But if you're going to go down that route, what do you have to lose if you want to get your nose in public school education? Thank you.
Further discussion? Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a few points. Representative Esgar, you said we don't want to be telling students if they don't pass this test they can't graduate. As a former government teacher in one of my former lives, I literally told students that. You have to pass this course or you don't graduate. And in fact, I had several students that told me, Mr. Wilson, you're trying to flunk me intentionally in this class. And I said, trust me, I don't want you back next year. We'll get you through it. So the issue that I see, Representative Salazar, is that rather than this becoming a divisive issue, we should be inclusive. That's what your bill is all about, is being inclusive of all Americans. And with that, I totally agree. The title says Teaching Competent History. That means everyone. Look around this chamber. We're not all alike, folks. We've all got a different history. And when you look at your students, they need to be included in that process as well, that we're all part of this vast brush that we paint America with. As we look at what we're talking about in this amendment, I would ask you this question: what should Americans know and understand about our country. All Americans. What should be some of the basic things that they all know and understand? We've talked a lot about this immigration test, the naturalization test. How many of you took it while we were going through the debate? Seriously? I did. Did any of the rest of you? There you go. Yeah, be honest. A few others did. We've been talking about this, beating this horse up here, and we really don't know what we're talking about. Take the darn thing. It doesn't take that long. And you may find out that you missed one or two of them, even though you knew it at one time. We require all naturalized citizens to take this exam. It doesn't take that long. Why wouldn't we require all citizens to know those basics about our country, including the basics with all these groups that are in this test or in this bill? When we talk about the information already being taught, I think Representative Rosenthal was talking about it's already been taught. There's a difference between teaching and retaining. I call that the final test in my government class. I teach it, you'd better retain it, or you're not graduating. To plug the groups listed in this bill into the history, culture, and contributions of all Americans is what we should be doing. It should be for all. Liberty and justice for all. And that's the same thing that applies to our curriculum in our classes. All students, all Americans should know what's in that exam. If you have not looked at it, look at it. Whether we like it or not, we have a history in America. We cannot change it. We cannot relive it. We cannot relive yesterday in this chamber. That's a part of our history. What happened yesterday, we cannot change it. We cannot change it, but we need to learn from it, and I think that's what you're saying, Representative Salazar. We need to learn from the contributions of all Americans, and that's important. I think this is a minor deal. I could take care of this exam in half a class period in government class, just to see if my American students really know about America. I urge a no vote on this amendment.
Further discussion? Representative Everett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was trying to defer to Representative Melton, my colleague that I came in with in 2013, along with Representative Salazar, which I'll cover somewhere in the 7-minute mark, which I maybe have left. A couple things. Again, this is about testing competent history. And here's what my challenge is. And looking across this room and all 65 legislators, I think you've gotten those emails that say, Congresswoman or Congressman, or can you vote no on the federal budget? And that's concerning to me, that they don't understand the difference between state government and federal government, basic civics that we should know. And I get that not only from students, but from citizens, and also, unfortunately, from teachers. And that's hugely concerning. I mean, I think that I'm getting asked a lot to, raise our salaries as teachers, and it's local school boards that actually make that determination. Knowing basic civics and teaching our kids basic civics is hugely important. This is a basic test that all American citizens, whether they're naturalized or you're born here, you should know this stuff, the most basic rudimentary stuff as an American. This is an easy test to administer. But I also want to go back to the integrity of the institution. We're going to set a precedent that we're going to run a substantive amendment on third reading. On third reading. So as we're getting later into the session, and I know that we don't want to come back later and get all of our work done, but we're setting a dangerous precedent by doing something that's extraordinary, that's out of the ordinary of what we would normally do. And also, and I said that I was going to come back to my friends that I came in with 2013, and we all went through orientation. And one of the things that was emphasized in orientation was about once you give your word in this chamber, your word is your bond, and you're not supposed to break your word. There was an agreement that this amendment was going to get led on. There was an agreement on both sides where Representative Willett, for example, was going to vote for this bill, which he did not like, and said, if you do this, I will support you. And that agreement is being violated. And I think that also goes to the integrity of the institution. For the integrity of the institution, I urge a no vote on this amendment.
Further discussion. Representative Herod.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I won't take a lot of time because I do think that we should get to the vote on this bill. But I just want to be clear that we have a lot of teachers in the building today. If you are confused about how to vote on this bill, you should talk to a teacher who are here today in the lobby willing to have this conversation. But it seems to me like with the Colorado Education Association, the American Federation of Teachers, AFT, all opposing the amendment and asking for this amendment to have that stripped out of the bill, it's what we should do. And if you want to have a conversation about the amendment that was put on a couple of days ago, then we should have it in a separate bill, allow the teachers to come and testify in support or opposition for that language, and then we move forward. So for today, I say we support this amendment, we get it stricken out of the bill, and if you have questions about whether or not this should be taught in schools, you go outside, get out of your chair, and talk to a teacher.
All right, we typically do not do applause on third reading debates, but welcome to the Capitol. Thank you for being here. Representative Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would, members, echo the comments about the dangerous precedent that we would set here. But I'm also in favor of being able to have an amendment on this bill that has some basic civics on it. You know, yesterday we were in a committee meeting in State Affairs, and we were discussing a very important bill that had to do with our Constitution, making a constitutional amendment, and having a convention of states. And we heard a lot of testimony, and one of the testimonies that we got to hear, which is exactly to the point of this test on being able to have the knowledge of the country that you live in and its government. We heard from a Harvard law professor talking about a constitutional amendment. He was talking about the Constitution. And he twice in his speech referred to America as a democracy. 3 times in other testimony, we heard the word democracy in our country. And it was sad to me, just like Representative Everett was saddened when people called him a congressman, it was saddened to me to hear some very scholarly people think that we live in a democracy when we live in a constitutional republic. And it was too bad that it had to be explained that we live in a rule of law, that our republic, we elect people to make our laws, and it's governed by a constitution. Because a democracy, as we all know, is a rule of the majority. And they rule over the minority, and who's ever in the majority makes the law. There is no law of the land in a democracy. And that's basic, simple stuff that all Americans should know. Yet we had some very scholarly people confuse our form of government in the United States. It's very important that we teach that. Sure, we can teach a lot of stuff, but it needs to be very important that the folks that come into our country and want to be citizens are, in fact, American citizens under our constitutional republic, and they know what they're talking about, and that's the best thing we can do for our kids. So I would urge a no on this amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion? Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment, when it was introduced, it was a pretty proud moment. I saw 2 sides of this chamber come together and vote. I think it was 42, thank you. 42 in favor. And I was proud of the sponsor of the bill for voting for it when he did. And it was a proud moment. My wife is an immigrant. And I want all cultures to be celebrated in America. I'm proud of this country. I'm proud that it welcomes all sorts of cultures from all around the world. It welcomed my wife. It's hurting in my chest right now to hear that learning about the citizenship test is somehow the antithesis of learning about Asian cultures. It's somehow the antithesis of multiculturalism. When my wife was sworn in, I can't imagine a more multicultural group. And now we're saying, you know what, learning about that test is not multicultural. Becoming a part of our melting pot that's not multicultural. This is the most inclusive thing I can imagine. I'm not an emotional man, but I was so proud, and now I don't know what to think. Learning how to be an American is not multicultural. I can't wrap my mind around that. Please allow me to be proud of this chamber and vote no on this amendment to strip.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Representative Singh.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It shouldn't be, members, it shouldn't be a right-wing or left-wing idea to teach our American children American history. But sadly, today we see that it is. I have voted against unfunded mandates for our schools and for our teachers, including unnecessary tests. You know what I was called? I was called a teacher's pet by the right wing on TV every night. But this test is one of the fundamentals of this country. In fact, I think it should be called the fundamentals test. Among the many things I teach grade school children is the Constitution and its history. And I am invited back to our public schools every single year, so I must be decent. And by the way, just a little something about our piece of history, if the Speaker will indulge me, since Representative Rosenthal brought it up. I think this is interesting and fascinating because the Three-Fifths Compromise was actually designed with the idea of ending slavery, to make sure the word slavery was not in our Constitution. Almost half of our union wouldn't have signed the Constitution without that phrase in it, as wrong as it is. And I have some friends on the left and right who have told me, well, we shouldn't have been a country then. We should have just fallen apart. We shouldn't have signed the Constitution if that was in it. Point is made, fair enough. But we were failing as a country. There was riots all over the country. The Articles of Confederation were failing. And if we hadn't have signed the Constitution, Great Britain was already debauching our currency, by the way. We would have been split in half. And by the way, even though France was an ally in the beginning of the Revolutionary War, they certainly weren't in 1793 or 1798. We would have been split in half by Great Britain and France. I don't think we would have been a country. 25 states have this test currently, and they have it in place for a reason. In the states that don't, up to 70% of our children don't know who the first president of the United States is. That's a pretty basic question. So I have another question. Why don't the unions want our Colorado kids to know the basics of American history? In some countries, women are punished for driving. They are stoned to death because they tempted a man to rape them. We are not a perfect country because we are not a perfect people. but we are the best damn country on earth. United we stand. Please stand up for our children. Vote no on this.
Further discussion? Representative Willett.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members, for even better and more discussion on this important issue. Let me start. I know that I wasn't called nefarious personally. I've worked with a lot of you for 4 years. But I do want to address, I'm just a guy from the West Slope with some legal training, but I've taught at Colorado Christian University and at Colorado Mesa University. My wife is a lifelong educator. And this idea did not come to me from some vast right-wing conservative agenda. I actually had thought of running this bill when I first got here, and I was putting it together, and Senator Owen Hill ran one. So I said, well, he kind of beat me to the punch. And I frankly put it on the back shelf. I was sitting back there at the back of the room when this bill was being discussed, and I said, you know what? We should add on that civics, that basic citizenship test. So I literally grabbed our policy guy, went down here to our House of Representatives staff, and worked up the amendment that night. This was no pre-planned deal. This is just simple logic and heartfelt good. And that heartfelt good came through in that debate when we reached an agreement and a bipartisan level of statesmanship. So let me just add a little to what you've heard about why this bill's important and why we should stick with the amended version of the bill. I did say the bill had merit, but I also said that I wouldn't vote for the bill alone, but I would with the amendment. After discussion, Representative Salazar came to the well and said, all right, I'll go with that. I'll vote for your amendment, and we'll see what happens in the Senate. I went belt and suspenders, came back up and said, I accept. And that's where we got the 43 positive bipartisan votes. Of the 25 states that have already done this, ladies and gentlemen, I won't read them all, but just so that you know, right around us in the Western Heritage, Arizona, North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah, Idaho, Kansas, Missouri, all of our neighbors virtually do this. Someone said this isn't going to add anything, it's already been taught. Our best educator in this place, no offense, all you other good education experts, but I think Rep. Wilson has lots of hats he wears. And he said, teaching's one thing, retention's another. Bear with me, please, and listen to this. Only 18% of students scored at or above proficient in U.S. history. Only 23% scored at or above proficient in civics. Only 36% could name all three branches of the U.S. government. Just as many, 35%, could not name a single one. 1 in 5 Americans, 21%, incorrectly think that a 5-4 Supreme Court decision is sent back to Congress for reconsideration. %63 could not name one of their state's U.S. senators. I can go on and on with more and more depressing statistics. That is why half of the nation already does this and why we should do it. Let me conclude on a little process and procedure. You know, I only took one personal privilege in 4 years. It was at the start of this session. You might recall I spoke about my mom, my dad, Charles Conklin, Wayne Aspinall. I spoke about bipartisanship, Democrats and Republicans. I talked about statesmanship. I've now had to deal with 3 very serious matters this session. And I focused on process more than substance or partisan politics. We folks are losing process. We're losing our bearing and our rudder and our sail. Whether it's serious matters of expulsion that need to be taken seriously and done, whether it's the Civil Rights Commission where we aren't considering process adequately.
Representative Willett, please stick to the amendment.
And whether it is this amendment and third reading amendments in violation of our rules, we are losing process. Why do we have process? Why do we have rules of evidence, rules of procedure, rules of this body, national rules, and tests for citizenship? Why? So, my friend Skinny, my new friend, our newest member, Skinny Winkler, got emotional up here, and he was so heartwarmed 2 days ago, and now he's so downtrodden. Why? I'll tell you why, same reason I am. I've had to mention Hobson's choice 3 times down here. I can't rely on agreements. I can't rely on rules. That's why Skinny's upset. That's why I'm upset. We had a deal, we had a good deal, we have a great amendment. It's good for our kids, it's good for our educators, it's good for our state. Vote no on this amendment to strike this, and then, yes, I urge you to vote yes on the bill as amended. Thank you.
Representative Milton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I rise in support of this amendment. We've done a lot of talking about the process. But when this amendment was first brought to the floor on second reading, I was concerned about the process then. This is a bill about multicultural history. And we were adding on something that, in my opinion, wasn't going to the spirit or the intent of the original bill. I said that it should be its own bill. The thing that we shouldn't be doing is trying to do committee work on the floor. We have committees so that way we can bring in experts, we can bring in teachers and educators and administrators and students to determine, is this the best policy for the state? This test is not just a simple assessment, but this is a graduation requirement. That is a heavy lift, something that shouldn't just be thrown onto a bill at 8 p.m. at night. But in the spirit of negotiation, I was there with the sponsor, and we thought, well, maybe we can get a bipartisan bill. And we could add this, what I thought was a small thing, on. Afterwards, though, we did hear from educators. We heard from those people that we should have heard from in committee had this been its own bill. And they said that this is problematic. This is problematic because it requires memorization, and that's a problem for people who have learning disabilities, who may be English language learners. It's a problem for our students or for our teachers who don't necessarily have the curriculum planned out. And so for that reason, we came back and we said, okay, if you were okay with 90% of the bill before, and when we added this small piece on, you should still be okay with the rest of this bill. Because what, again, this bill is doing is celebrating our history, our multicultural history. Above me right now is a stained glass portrait of Barney Ford. How many of you knew that Barney Ford was even black before you got here? Be honest. Okay, I got a couple over here. But the reason why he's up here and the reason why we talk about him every year is because of the contributions that many cultures bring to our state and have brought to this country. Again, that was the intent of the bill. So yes, we're taking out one little piece. That should be its own bill. But if that's enough to flip you to a no, then I am sorry for you. Members, I urge an aye vote on this amendment to bring it back to the original bill. And when it comes to that underlying amendment that we're taking out, let's do that in a separate form of legislation, as I said 2 nights ago. Let's bring in the teachers, let's bring in the educators, let's bring in the administrators and the students, and let's have a full discussion about whether or not that is the best policy for the state. Members, again, I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion. Question before us is the passage of L004. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Beckman. Please close the machine. With 36 yes votes, 29 no votes, L004 is adopted. Representative Beckman, that'll be $3. Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1276 as amended.
Question before us is a passage of House Bill 1276 as amended on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Humphrey and Representative Winkler. Please close the machine. With 37 yes votes, 28 no votes, House Bill 1276 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 156.
Senate Bill 156 by Senator Cook, also Representative Kennedy, concerning the publication of fiscal information by a county.
Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 156 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 156 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lundeen, McKean, Papone, Willett, and Winkler, please vote. Please close the machine. With 46 yes votes, 19 no votes, Senate Bill 156 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 166.
Nope.
Please read the title of Senate Bill 56.
Senate Bill 56 by Senator John House Representatives Lee and Willett concerning monetary amounts and civil actions.
Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 56 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 56 on third reading and final passage. Assistant Minority Leader West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I'm not sure how much this bill or how high this was on your list of priorities or how important this was on your radar, but I want to thank Representative Lee and Representative Willett for their work, very hard work on this bill. Here's the issue, members. Our citizens are having an increasingly difficult time having access to our justice system. Our district courts are completely bogged down. It takes years to get cases resolved. This is simply unacceptable. If we can find ways to open our county courts to our citizens, and that's exactly what we're doing in this bill by raising the jurisdictional limits, I hope we'll continue that conversation in future sessions. But this is an important conversation for us to have because our justice system, our civil justice system, is completely bogged down. And we've got to focus our attention on this. So again, my thanks to the sponsors for this important piece of legislation. I urge an aye vote.
Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Gray, Pabon, Ryer, and Winkler. Please close the machine. With 65 yes votes, 0 no votes, Senate Bill 56 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 166.
Senate Bill 166 by Senator Quorum, also Representative Harrod, concerning changing the maximum jail sentence for certain crimes from 1 year to 364 days.
Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 166 on third reading and final passage.
Question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 166 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Winkler. Please close the machine. With 36 yes votes, 29 no votes, Senate Bill 166 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 000. 007. 007. Oh, I did not get much sleep last night.
Senate Bill 007 by Senators Tate and Guzman, House Representatives Duran and Baker concerning the Colorado Affordable Housing Tax Credit in connection with renaming the low-income housing tax credit the Colorado Affordable Housing Tax Credit and extending the period in which Colorado Housing and Finance Authority may allocate affordable housing tax credits.
Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 007 on third reading and final passage.
All right, Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote on Senate Bill 007 on third reading and final passage. Representative Herod, Hooton, and Winkler. Please close the machine. With 43 yes votes, 22 no votes, Senate Bill 007 is passed. Co-sponsors. Co-sponsors. Co-sponsors for affordable housing. Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 208.
Senate Bill 208 by Senators Baumgartner and Capalas, House Representatives Escar and Hansen concerning the creation of the Governor's Mansion Maintenance Fund.
Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 208 on third reading and final passage.
Question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 208 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Benavides, Hooton, Humphrey, Michelson, Janae, Pabon, Pedersen, Sias, and Winkler. Please vote. Please close the machine. With 47 yes votes, 18 no votes, Senate Bill 208 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 85.
Senate Bill 85 by Senator Todd, House Representative McLaughlin concerning providing financial incentives for educators to work in rural areas in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Oh, Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 85 on third reading and final passage.
Question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 85 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Salazar and Representative Valdez, please vote. Please close the machine. With 48 yes votes, 17 no votes, Senate Bill 85 is passed. Co-sponsors. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 158. Senate Bill 158.
Senate Bill 158 by Senators Corral and Garcia, House Representatives Duran and Catlin, concerning measures to increase school district access to interoperable communication technology to improve school safety and in connection with the banking appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 158 on third reading and final passage.
Representative Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I tried my best to what I would call shy away from this bill and try not to pick a side on it as we went forward. And coming to look at that, it was the wrong choice for me, as last Friday I gave an interview about school safety to one of my local radio stations, and we were talking about school safety. And as we were ending that interview, she was talking about this bill and about radios inside of schools, and I said, oh, I'm a no vote, and then we ran out of time, and so that's where we ended. And then Monday, my phone started ringing Monday night and into Tuesday, and people talking to me that, first of all, I don't want school safety. Well, couldn't be further from the truth. And then second, I was protecting a company that I work for. Well, that's not anywhere near the truth either. So there are consequences when we don't get up here and speak our mind and tell people where we're at and where we're going. I wish this bill would have came into a committee I was in. So let me tell you the reason that I am not only a no, I'm a hard no on this bill. I'm a hard no on this bill not because I don't want school safety. I truly believe we need school safety. I truly believe we have not put enough money into school safety. I don't believe with this bill that what we're doing with this bill is we're doubling up money that the federal government is already prepared to spend. Think about this. We in the U.S. in 2012, the federal government pushed something called FirstNet. FirstNet is going to be a nationwide interoperable system for public safety. And you say, well, that system is not reliable because it works on cell networks and cell networks get overcrowded. What FirstNet did is issue a whole new spectrum just for FirstNet that, first of all, preempts everything in case of emergency. You can look at firstnet.gov and firstnet.com, and they will explain it. It is a reliable system. It is an interoperable system, and it is a system that will work with what you have in your pocket. It will work with this cell phone right here in your pocket. FirstNet allows spectrum, and this has to be released. This is done. The state of Colorado has already opted into FirstNet. We've opted in, which means FirstNet is coming, and it is done by AT&T. This system will come and go to first responders and anybody that deals with public safety. So anybody that you see in a school that's dealing with public safety will have the ability to be part of FirstNet as we move forward. The taxpayers are already buying and paying for this system. Buying and paying for this system. That's you and I. When we're talking about another $30 million that we're trying to put towards this system, to me, that money is better spent to go into the school safety bill, to harden our schools, to get school resource officers while this FirstNet system comes into play. This FirstNet system that is coming will allow you to not only have a two-way radio, that first of all, a two-way radio. You're going to be using that in a situation that, first of all, you may not want to be talking in the first place. Why would you not want to be using live camera, live video, apps that will be developed for FirstNet, and texting that will be developed for that system? Go on to the website and look at it. That is public safety. That is not overdoing, that is not double paying for, that is using the system that the federal government has put in place for the safety of citizens. That is why I am a no. Mind you, I wanted to be a quiet no in the back of the room because I didn't want somebody saying you're against public safety. I didn't want somebody saying you're protecting your company, but I couldn't win either way. Either way, I had somebody ready to write a story that says John's against public safety or John is protecting his company. I will tell you that we have a system that is coming up that will have to go to schools as public safety providers to provide a system that works in emergency situations, that works for incident command at a local level. They have 10 principles. Go on their website and look at it. 10 principles for public safety this FirstNet system will provide. This system will allow you to do all of these things and more, and they are telling app developers to develop apps that will help them get this done. Members, I believe in the safety of our schools. I can tell you that wholeheartedly. I just believe that this $30 million should actually go into the school safety bill and be used for that situation. Let the schools decide how they're going to use it. We have 100 and I think I just found out 180 school districts. We are going to put $30 to $35 million into school safety. Guys, that doesn't scratch the surface. That doesn't scratch the surface of hardening our schools or getting school resource officers or preparing teachers to make sure that our schools are safe. Bringing a bill like this that says, yes, they say it allows any technology. Well, great. So now we're going to have this technology, that technology, and this technology as we go forward when the federal government is already designing something for you and AT&T is already designing something for you. By the way, I do not work for them. That is the absolute competition to what I do. So I am not doing this, number one, to help myself or to harm public safety. I am doing this because I truly believe we have a system going and we shouldn't piece and part together our schools as we move forward dealing with their safety. And that's why I am a no on this bill. I believe this money should go to public schools for the safety of public schools or school safety in order to better that while this system comes forward. I will tell you, we should be worried about our schools. And I truly thank the sponsors for bringing the bill forward. I really did not want to speak against it for the reasons I just mentioned. But if we have a system that's coming forward, why are we going to piece together a different system and in 5 years, change that system, or less than 5 years, change that system to a system that we already have that's sitting inside of our pockets? You can look on there, they're designing handsets for this system. It will take a chip to do it. But when there is an emergency, the local 911 center will be able to switch over. You will allow your phones, those phones that are designed for public safety, to preempt anybody else on that spectrum so it won't be clogged up, and they will be able to talk back and forth seamlessly in an incident command situation to allow for seamless connection. Mind you, what can they also do? They can tell you the location of that phone without you talking into it. It gives you that location. It can take live video as you go. I'm telling you, I would rely on that system. Members, that's why I am a no vote. I believe this money can be better spent in school safety.
Representative McKean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise also in opposition to this, and not again because we don't want school safety. We have to have school safety. But when you hear someone here talk about the interoperability of a system, when you hear someone talk here about what it means for us to have a national system rather than a piecemeal of 50 individual states, maybe doing their own thing, maybe not doing their own thing, then you have a system that is fraught with problems and rife for failure. And this is what I've looked at over the years taking incident command system courses. We have a process in this country to deal with disasters and deal with emergencies where we all speak the same language, where we all respond to things the same way, and where we all have the same ability to communicate. One of the things that I think Representative Becker makes the best point of, if many of us, Representative Becker J makes the best point of, one of the things that we all look back to is just how far our technology moves. My grandmother was born in 1899, and so she got to see a whole lot of stuff. What we're seeing now with cell phones and with the technology that we have within them is absolutely the now generation and the next generation of communication. And I think that one of the things that we owe to our citizens, to our folks visiting us here at the Capitol today, is to make good choices with the dollars we have. I think this is a choice that would end up being a throwaway system that will be quickly supplanted by technology that you have in your pockets right now today. I think this is where we make some of our choices, where we know what's coming, we know how good it can be, and we don't make a subset of that choice today and throw those dollars in the trash.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. So I took a hard look at this because we're asking some tough questions right now. We have limited resources to deal with public safety, our K-12 system, our healthcare system. But when I go back and read the safety clause of our bills, and I look at the fact that we need to prioritize public safety, I see this as an option. When we talk about interoperability, that's important. There's something else that's important, that's redundancy. We need redundancy in our networks because, FirstNet is coming. I have a lot of faith in FirstNet. But regardless of whether or not FirstNet comes, how quickly it gets here, whether or not it works everywhere, whether it's only going to work on certain networks at certain times, I think there's something else that's important. And that's to remember that our DTRS, digital trunk radio system, is something that is working in our rural areas. It is something that's saving lives and getting people out to incidents when they need to happen. And so this is an investment in redundancy, not just interoperability, because if one thing goes down, we need another thing. When there isn't a front door, sometimes you need a side door. And so that is what this bill is about to me, and that's why I don't come up here on third readings very often, but when it comes to public safety and technology and making sure we use the best things that we have out there and making sure we do it in a thoughtful way, that is what this is about. And if it turns out that FirstNet is going to supplant all of this and the conversations happen as outlined in this bill, then you know what? Money can revert back to the general fund and we can use it for better things. But in the meantime, let's build in that safeguard through a redundancy. Redundancy is good in this case. And so I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion? Madam Speaker, Representative Catlin.
All right, thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. It is an honor to bring forward this bill with Representative Catlin, and this was a bill that passed the Senate with strong bipartisan support. It is a meaningful step forward to make sure that we have school safety across Colorado. And today we have educators from across the state, and many of you know firsthand some of the challenges and barriers that you face every single day. What this bill will do is it will make sure that there are emergency services that are available real time during an incident. And I grew up in Colorado, went to public schools in Northglenn and Arvada, and some of the mass shootings that we have seen in the state, some of the violence that we have seen at our schools, we know that every single minute matters. And that is why we want to make sure that our schools have tools to be able to have access to the technology they need in an emergency situation. This year, we set aside $35 million for school safety because we are making it a bipartisan priority. This bill enables us to continue to move in the right direction. Again, we got strong bipartisan support out of the Senate, and I respectfully ask for a yes vote.
Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I'm down here to say that I want you to vote yes on this bill, but there's a couple of things I'd like to make a point of. One, I don't like to wait for somebody to come to help me. It's interesting that my side of the aisle is telling us to wait for the government to come and do something for us. That's not where I live. You know, in my district, we have places that cell phones won't work, may never work. I'm not sure if they will. I don't want to depend upon a cell phone when I know that a radio system will work. Now, in my district, there's lots of canyons, there's lots of stuff that you can't get in and out of. Even our police force, I've had an incident in my district where a sheriff's deputy was wounded in a shootout, had to go to the top of the hill so they could ask for help. I don't want that to happen in a school. I appreciate what's being brought forward by the people that say they don't support this bill, but right now, we need this bill on the Western Slope. Right now, we can use these radios. We can do some good. Believe me, folks, if we can save one family from the tragedies that we've seen, then we need to do that. And today I would ask for a yes vote on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Catlin. And I think the noise is coming from people's cell phones because there's an Amber Alert that's automatically activating people's phones. If you could take a look at the important note and then put your phone on silent, that would be very helpful. Further discussion, Representative Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I can appreciate the words of the sponsors as we go. But let me tell you, first of all, there is an obligation for FirstNet to cover these schools. It's not like we're going to have dead spots sitting inside of there. There is an obligation to cover these, and we are already paying for that to the tunes of millions and millions of dollars already. And if we're talking about redundancy in government spending, I'm not sure that's what we want. What we want is a redundancy in a network. And that's exactly what FirstNet is doing as well. Redundancy inside of the networks. That's what this does. And you say cell phones get clogged up. What I was trying to explain before is there was spectrum issued for this. That when we have an emergency, that automatically switches over to those public safety phones to allow them to speak back and forth locally with incident control. That's what it does. I get to go through a lot of schools that have two-way radios in them. And they spent a lot of dollars on those to be able to speak with our local 911 center. Venture a guess where those radios are. Those radios are either sitting in a closet on the charger that they don't know because they're so bulky they don't carry them, or they're not around, or it's not something they use every day, so they leave them sitting somewhere. Most of them are carrying around this, though, a cell phone. And you just heard from the Amber Alert that we just got that you are receiving messages. When you are in that situation, you want to have the ability to either have ability to text so you are not talking, or noise coming out of the machine that you're using so that nobody knows where you are, or the ability for that device to tell somebody where you are so that they can get to you
And
without
Representative Beckman,
speaking. Yes, ma'am.
Representative Becker, your time has expired.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Members, I would ask for a no vote on the bill.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. We heard this bill in education, and a lot of folks from Park County were there testifying in favor of it, so I jerked them through several knotholes about it, because I want to know how this would work, and does it work. Now, what you've got to understand, we may have an obligation to cover schools now, but I can guarantee you that Amber Alert that just went off, depending on where I am on my drive home, I may or may not receive it. Then later I get it when I get coverage. If I'm in Fort Morgan visiting Representative Becker, Jay, I can talk to him from Denver to Fort Morgan. But if I top Red Hill, I can't talk to him until I get to Jefferson. And that's 6 miles later. Then I'll lose him again. And then I won't pick him up until I'm clear over Kenosha and I get closer to where I pick up the Bailey group. So my point is, folks, today, this bill will provide the interconnectivity that is necessary. As I said, Park County was there, so I quizzed them. This is one of those areas that's had a school tragedy. Park County's pretty diverse. If you don't know where it starts, if you're heading west out of Denver, when you hit Pine Junction, you're in it. And you stay in it until you go over Trout Creek Pass. It's a long ways across there. And if I'm in South Park, I can talk clear across South Park. But if I cross Red Hill, I can't talk to Jefferson 6 miles away. So grilling the people that testified, and these were the emergency services in Park County, I said, can you, when that call comes in, can you interconnect with the schools and with all systems with what this bill would do? They said yes, and we do it. They, because they've been in the situation that they know the gravity of the situation, went ahead and did that, and they can do it. This is available now. Some of you may have heard the phrase final mile when it comes to connectivity in Colorado. Some of us are still waiting on that final mile. I urge a yes vote on this bill today. If we have the cell system that comes in and covers the state of Colorado with a blanket, I'll be the first one to say we don't need to fund this one any longer. We've got a better system. But until I can talk to Jefferson from Red Hill 6 miles away, vote yes on this bill.
Representative Esgar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem, and I rise in strong support of Senate Bill 158. One of my superintendents from School District 70 was here to testify in favor of this bill. We are already using this in Pueblo School District 70, and that's important because it's 2,400 square miles. It's the largest school district geographically in the state of Colorado. It goes from the chili fields of Pueblo all the way to the towns that are nestled against the mountains in Pueblo County. This is proven effective. This is proven to make sure that they can all stay connected. And I guarantee you, Representative Wilson, sometimes cell services don't hit those areas either. So this is an important bill for today. And I echo what Representative Wilson said. We need this now. We need this today. It's proven effective. It's proven it's working. If the new technology comes in.
Representative Esgar, give me 1 second, please. Thank you, folks. Lots of conversations on the side and the back. Members, please take your seats. We are in third readings. Please proceed, Representative Esgar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. This is a proven technology that's working now. If advanced technology comes later and proves to be effective and work better, we can have that conversation, but our kids can't wait now. We deserve this now.
Further discussion. Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem, and members, I appreciate your consideration of this bill. You know, one of the most humbling experiences that I've had during the time that I've served as a legislator is getting to know the family of Claire Davis. And many of you may know who I am talking about. Claire Davis tragically died from injuries due to a shooting at Arapahoe High School. And her death was heartbreaking to the community and really represented that no community is immune from gun violence. No community is immune from some of the challenges that teachers, that educators, that students, parents, and families face every day to make sure that their schools are safe. And that is why we need to do everything in our power to make sure that we are investing in school safety. And I am thankful for the strength of the Davis family to turn tragedy into triumph and continue to advocate for school safety in every single community so that no other family has to feel the hurt and the pain that they have had to feel when Claire passed away. Members, I do not want to wait for the federal government to problem solve for us. I don't think we should leave it up to them to be able to make sure the work that needs to happen here happens. And that is why we need this Colorado solution to continue to invest and understand that when there is an emergency, every minute counts, every second counts. And that could mean the difference between life and death for Colorado students and educators. Every second counts. Please vote yes.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 158. Mr. Randall, please open the machine and members proceed to vote.
Representative Covarrubias, Escar, Gray, Salazar, Sandridge, and Winkler. Representative Sandridge. Representative Sandridge is excused. Please close the machine. With 46 yes votes, 18 no votes, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 158 is passed. Co-sponsors. Co-sponsors. Representative Sandridge, upon request, that will be a $5 fee. Please close the machine. Madam Majority Leader Becker.
No, I'm just waiting for the next one.
Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1019.
House Bill 1019, Representative Fidel Senator Priola, concerning criteria applied in determining performance ratings for entities in the elementary and secondary public education system in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1019 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is a passage of House Bill 1019 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote.
I know, it's kind of sucks.
Representative Winkler, Williams, Valdez, Michelson, Janae, Melton, Humphrey, Hooton, Covarrubias, Catlin, and Bridges. Please vote. Please close the machine. With 56 yes votes, 9 no votes, House Bill 1019 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1387.
House Bill 1387, Representative Rankin, now Senator Moreno, concerning the elimination of refund interest for a property tax payment that is resulting in an error in an oil and gas owner or operator statement.
Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Members, we're on third reading. Please be quiet and take your seats. Thank you. I move for the passage of House Bill 1387 on third reading and final passage.
Question before us is the passage of House Bill 1387 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. All right, please close the machine. With 65 yes votes, 0 no votes, House Bill 1387 is passed. There's typically not applause. All right, co-sponsors. Please close the machine. All right, Madam Majority Leader Becker.
And now I just want to make the first announcement. Okay.
We're now to announcements and introductions. Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, in case you were wondering, since you were all so chatty today, yes, we are coming back today at 4:30 for Call of the House. We will probably be working late, so see you at 4:30.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, for those of you who don't know this already, just a show of hands, who here has a CSU intern from the Duffy Strayer? This is their last day today, folks. So if you want to either stand up and applause or come to the well and just wave to the cameras and thank your interns for their support, their work, and helping the people of Colorado. Thank you to all of the Strayer Duffy interns for everything that you've done. We didn't pay you, but your payment will be in the afterlife, I promise you that. And thank you once again for everything you've done.
Further announcements and introductions. Representative Janal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Health insurance and environment, please listen up. Upon adjournment of the adjournment committees, that is when the upon adjournment committees are done, please go directly to room 271 because time is of the essence. We are hearing 3 bills that would normally probably take us till midnight or longer and in a few hours. And I want to give everybody a fair shot at their bills, the sponsors and the people who have come to testify for or against. And so please, when your committees upon adjournment are done, come immediately to room 271. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Janal. And I see some of the educators that are here today leaving. Thank you for joining us at the Capitol and being respectful of the integrity of our institution here. You are welcome here in the Colorado Capitol. This is the people's house, so thank you for being here. With that, further announcements or introductions, I do have one more. Representative Michelson Janae will replace Representative McLaughlin on the Transportation Committee today only. Representative Pedersen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And for everybody who's here today, we are going to do just a quick tribute. If you have just a couple more minutes, we want to acknowledge you here on the floor. And with that, for our teachers, and I move that Mr. Randall read our tribute.
Mr. Randall, please read the tribute.
The House of Representatives, convened in the 71st General Assembly, hereby extends sincere commendations to public school educators. In Colorado and across the country, educators open children's minds to new ideas, knowledge, and aspirations and can profoundly influence their students long after their school days are over. Educators fill a variety of roles in students' lives, including role model, mentor, listener, and motivator, and educators' hard work and efforts are directly responsible for creating the leaders of tomorrow. Educators spend countless hours outside the classroom directing or supporting a myriad of extracurricular activities and programs that enrich a student's school experience and are often the key to unlocking a student's interest and potential. We, the members of the Colorado State House of Representatives, are proud to express our appreciation to Colorado public school educators for their work and dedication and encourage all Coloradans to continue to support those who educate our state's children and youth. On request of Representatives Jesse Danielson and Brittany Pedersen, given this 26th day of April 2018, State Capitol in Denver.
Representative Pedersen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We were going to actually do that in a minute, but we want to thank you all for being here and for your service. It was the teachers in my life that gave me the opportunity to succeed. I know that every day you probably feel like your job is thankless and difficult, but you change lives, and we all here at the General Assembly want to thank you so much for dedicating your career to our kiddos.
Madam Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As you all know, we have educators coming to visit us today and tomorrow in the state capitol, and I want you to know that we are here, we're standing with you, we're listening, and we're happy that you are visiting the state's capitol to make your voices heard. We appreciate your presence here today. We're proud of you and the work that you do. And I just wanted to have the folks, the educators from Douglas, Lake, Clear Creek, and my own county of Jefferson, please stand and be recognized.
Last comment, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I also just want to recognize our school board member in Jefferson County, Allie LaSalle, joins us today. Thank you so much for being with us.
On behalf of the entire General Assembly, thank you so much for everything that you do every day to build our communities and make sure students reach their full potential. Madam Speaker Pro Tem Danielson.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, and I just wanted to let the educators know that I'll be presenting today's tribute to the educators in Jefferson County Education Association, and John Ford, the president, is to my left here on the floor with a number of educators from Jefferson County.
Further announcements and introductions. I saw Representative Kraft next.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Business Affairs and Labor Committee, we have two bills up today. 1415, regulate student education loan servicers, and then for action only, Senate Bill 86, the cyber coding cryptology for state records. SIA 130, LSBA.
Representative McKean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and to all the teachers from the Thompson School District, welcome. Thank you for your service, and come find me.
Representative Liston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to recognize the educators from School District 11 in Colorado Springs, School District 20, School District 12, School District 2. Who am I leaving out? All of El Paso County, all of the good teachers. Hello and welcome, so give yourselves a hand.
Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to recognize the teachers from District 20 for leading the way, making our district one of the best districts in the state of Colorado. Thank you very much.
Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Also want to extend my thanks to District 20, D11. Don't know if there's anybody from D12 or Manitou Springs. I represent parts of all of those. Come find me.
Quiet
Thanks.
in the House, please. Quiet in the House. Representative Carver. I just wanted to get it quiet for you.
Representative Carver.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. Again, just wanted to extend my welcome to District 20, D11. Don't know if there's anybody here from D12, D38. And I have a bit of Manitou Springs. If you're here, welcome, and please come find me if there's issues you'd like to discuss.
Further announcements or introductions. Representative Young.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, if there are any District 6 teachers here, I say hello and come find me as well. But the reason I'm actually here in the well is to alert the members of Appropriations that upon the call of the House, we will have a meeting in the well to consider some bills that will then probably find their way onto this afternoon or this evening's floor work. So members, be sure you're here at the call of the House so that we can consider appropriations bills. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Further discussion. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Local Government Committee, we will be meeting at 11:50 a.m. So see you downstairs, 11:50 a.m. We have 2 bills.
Further announcements or introductions? Going once, going twice. Seeing no further announcements or introductions, Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess till 1 o'clock today.
All right, seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until 1 p.m. today.